welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have a beautiful couple here today with me. It's Sasha and Andy Camacho. They are the visionaries and creators of Soleana Farms, which is it's a writing program for children with special needs. Is that correct?
Yep, spot on. Our mission is to really just benefit riders, individuals with special needs. It's not specifically children, although the majority of our riders are youth. We do have some adults in the program as well. So,
oh, awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
So you serve a pretty wide community then.
Yep,
So you both had, well, you already had a daughter named Soledad.
And Solana.
Yes.
And then subsequently you had Solana.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where we get ourselves in trouble. Sorry. So yeah, our oldest daughter is Soledad. Our youngest daughter is Solana. And we'll probably talk about it in the future, but as the idea for the nonprofit came to be, a way to represent and honor our children was to split their names in half. The front half of my oldest daughter's name, the last half of my youngest daughter, mash those together, and that's how we got Soleana. Now it gets a little confusing because it's pretty close to Solana, which is my youngest daughter's name, and a lot of people will on occasion call Solana by the nonprofit, the organization name, and we just kind of roll with it.
Yeah. And we don't correct them anymore, because at this point, like, we know it's confusing, and so we just go with it.
It's a beautiful name, and you have a beautiful family. So tell me a little bit about how this journey began. I know that Solana has Down syndrome, so that must have been an interesting twist. You know, when we're planning for our families, we never anticipate, you know, these twists and turns that life takes us on. So what has it been like for you to just learn so much about Down syndrome, raise a child with Down syndrome? They seem like pure sunshine and love to me whenever I interact with any child with Down syndrome. Like, it seems like they just crack you open in so many ways.
To that, I will say, you know, with your children, you always get what you see the other side of them. And when they're out in public, you hope they're representing the family well. So you get to see the love and sunshine with Solana. we get the more stubborn sort of, I'm doing it my way kind of thing. But yes, she is an absolute
well, I think that's true for parenting in general, right?
Exactly.
Yes, I think, you know, people always say that to us, you know, oh gosh, people with Down syndrome, they're so sweet and kind. And I agree, but I lovingly say that is not who we got. We also got one that, like he said, is sassy. She's very we'll say she's spirited. She's determined.
I like that.
She knows what she wants. There's no stopping her, you know, which can be good.
But you know, those are great qualities, but they're difficult qualities to parent.
For sure, because, you know, at the same time, we've never treated her as though she couldn't do anything, or she will never be able to do this. So for us, it's always been having those high expectations of her, and trying to put the diagnosis to the side to see what her potential
Well,
is.
you don't really want the diagnosis to define who she is.
Correct.
You want to nurture her spirit, her gifts, her talents. And I think that's true for any parent and child relationship, right? You really want to encourage them. Well, I do anyway. Now I want to really encourage my children to be who they are meant to be in the world, and not to dim their light or to limit themselves in any way.
Exactly.
And so I think it's beautiful you've taken this approach. And how old was she when she was first introduced to horses and horseback riding?
I want to say she was 4 or 5. One of our friends had a daughter with special needs who was taking horseback riding lessons, and we were just trying to find just different ways to help her get stronger, something that maybe was not, you know, like in a physician's office, something that was outside. And so we started her in lessons once a week, and she really enjoyed it. You know, I think she always was looking forward to seeing her horse Freddie. And so it was great just to see her progress. But what was happening was the lessons were getting canceled here and there. And for our kiddos with special needs, like they need that consistency of every week, this is what I'm doing.
And then you have to deal with the fallout when they find out they're not going to the lesson when they've been waiting all week. And that's how it goes. You go to the lesson on Saturdays or whatever, right? So
exactly,
that becomes a challenge. And so you are having to kind of find a way to pacify her or this or that. But what's so interesting to me about your story is Andy, in March of 2014, which was 7 years ago now, you had a dream. So I'm going to ask you to share that dream.
Yeah. So for me, and Soleana Stables is our ministry. This is our work for the Lord. For me, the Lord has always kind of worked in dreams. Certain key points and things that I thought I should do or avenues that were adjusted kind of came through dreams. So like my professional career, I'm a pilot in the Air Force on my day job. And there was a dream that had me flying, very vivid dream, flying airplanes in the mountains. And I remember that. And then that's kind of where I set my life to.
I call those lucid dreams, where we're dreaming, but we're also observing the dream and we're very consciously present. They kind of really stand out. And then those really are messages to pay attention to. So I love that you kind of have honored that path. Yeah. And you saw yourselves owning a horse farm, or like what was the dream really?
So yes. And have you ever seen the movie Gladiator?
My favorite movie.
Okay. There's a scene in Gladiator at the very beginning. I think it comes back at the very end where he's walking through these fields of wheat with his hands just touching the blades of grass. Yeah. So I had a version of that dream 3 nights in a row leading into World Down Syndrome Day, which is the 21st of March. It's just 3 nights, and every night it was almost the same dream, and it kept kind of building from there. And the first night I was like, oh, that was really pretty, like imagery. Day 2, I was like, there's something here. By day 3, it was,
there's a clear message.
I know what I have to do. And then I was up at like 3 a.m. with a notebook, just making notes about what it would, what the mission would be, like all the generic foundational stuff, like the framework of it. And then I know we had, like Sasha and I had talked about it and just said, I think there's something here. We met with good friends of ours, one of which is she owns her own business. And so we kind of presented it to her as is there something here? How do we do this? And she kind of just gave us on the, an LLC sort of perspective on what you might consider. But that was pretty much it. That was 7 years ago next week, where over the course of those days and it was all foundational work. But Sasha will be the first to tell you that we do not have a background in ag at all. I mean, we're both city dwellers. Although I love to go camping, I'm an outdoorsman.
Right.
I did not grow up around horses. So
and creating a therapeutic program too around it. That's a whole another can of worms that you open. And what I find is so fascinating is when we're being called to something, kind of through our heart and soul, the universe delivers the right people, the right opportunity. Things kind of line up as we kind of align with our purpose. And Sasha, this has really kind of probably been a surprise for you, but doesn't it feel like home? Like this, you just found your lane and your purpose here through the stables.
Absolutely. I think, before we started this, I mean, I remember when he first brought up the idea, I truly thought he had lost his mind.
You're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, like he said, we were not, we didn't grow up on a farm. I did not grow up around horses. I did not grow up wanting to be around horses. This was not what I would have said was in my plan. And so when he brought it up, I truly thought, like, this wasn't the dream you were
like,
dreaming.
This is so far out of my wheelhouse. Like, how? Right. You always go right to like the how. Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
How are we even going to birth this idea into reality?
Exactly. And so once I sort of got on board, I said, okay, I'll start researching. I'll start looking at it. But then before you knew it, like, he had created a Facebook page. And I was like,
whoa. We're not ready for that, right?
No, because now he had put it out to the world. And I was like, well, now we have to do it because I can't tell people we're doing this, and then now we're not
It's
doing
kind of
it.
like when you put something on a vision board and you actually ink it in, it's like becomes a little more tangible, like, oh,
Yeah.
it's actually
I'm,
going to happen.
yeah, I'm a big fan of bold movements. And that's exactly what, in my mind, and I think it was the next week after, yeah, I think it was the last week of March, I built a Facebook page, and then I started, how do I build a website? And so all those things.
Oh my gosh.
In my mind,
Wow.
if I put this out there, there's too many people looking that.
Well,
they
it's
won't
going to come
fulfill.
back, right? It's going to add energy and it's going to build, and that energy is going to kind of create, like we're talking about, the vision, the manifestation of it, the unfolding of it.
She wasn't so happy with me, but initially.
Well, it's hard to be pushed out of your comfort zone, right?
Well, and for me, like our girls were going to be graduating from Solana was going to be graduating from her preschool. And so this was finally going to be the first time where I really thought about going back to work, going back to corporate America, because now they were going to be in elementary school and it was going to be great. And I could finally sort of relax. And that was not, I didn't even have a day to do that because she wasn't graduating until July, like that same year. So, this was in March. So I never got that time that I thought I would have because he had the stream.
Things just started to unfold. Now, I know you guys volunteered a lot at different therapeutic riding programs. Are there many in Houston, Texas, or in the area?
So there, in our initial research, there were a lot of them, and there still are a lot of them north of Houston. So you've got Magnolia, Spring, the Woodlands, Cypress, Humboldt. There's great facilities up there, but what we were finding is that there weren't any south of Houston.
Closer in.
Yes, ma'am. And so for us, because that was one thing we had thought of initially was, still having her ride, but just go to a different program, where they wouldn't be canceling lessons. But we would be driving an hour one way to get there.
That's a whole day by the time you get up and back. And
if she were our only child, absolutely we would do it. But when you have more children that you have to consider their schedules,
right.
I couldn't justify it. And so, when we were researching down here and we weren't finding anything, I think that was also another push for me where I was like, man, as a mom, like I know how much I want to do for my child. Like, so I just felt like we had to. Yeah, I felt like we had to, not only for our child, which obviously was the inspiration, but for any other person or family that needed this type of service that just could not make that drive up there. And north of Houston, there are great programs. Absolutely phenomenal.
But it's far, when you factor in traffic and people, working parents who only maybe have a day off or two during the weekend to get everything at home done. And again, like you said, multiple children, that's a big ask for the other children to commit all of that time to go and sit and come back, right? So it becomes challenging.
And so that what you're kind of hitting on became one of our foundational aspects. And so, I'm sure you've done it. We do it. We've seen people do it. Families with children with special needs will pretty much go anywhere that they can or need to, even if it is an hour and a half. We have a rider that comes from out by Katy, right? Still, and that's an hour, 15-minute drive one way.
Wow, that's a commitment.
So what we're just looking to provide is, an additional resource more centrally located to people that hadn't seen it before. And in that, one of our models was, because we were there, when, if the girls were in soccer or some other organization, a lot of times one of us would be engaged and almost participating when all we really wanted to do was watch our kiddo perform. And so we said, when you're here, first of all, when you're here at Stables, your family, and your ability to sit down or interact with other people is more important to us. And, Sasha calls it, the Respite Hour, which is exactly that, to just hang out, actually physically watch your child ride, and then just enjoy that moment. Or we have one mother who's a nurse overnight, on the night shift. she'll come in, drop her son off. He goes riding, does fantastic, and she goes into the car and takes a nap because that's her 45
It's perfect.
45 minutes of peace. And so we've set that valued time for our parents to be able to just
Right.
yeah, just be there, and that's the hour that they get to just relax.
And also build a community, because they get to meet other families who are maybe facing some of the same struggles. Or, I mean, have you found that the community that's building through the stables has kind of strengthened and supported each other through?
Our community sustained us through COVID. You know, we're a nonprofit, high operational costs program. You know, horses are not cheap. We know that. And when, as I say, the world stopped last March, a lot of our riders who had, you know, we run 14-week semesters for our big, you know, for spring and fall. A lot of them rolled their tuition over because they knew the benefit of the program, but understood, hey, we can't ride just yet. As soon as we can, I know you're going to put this to good use. So for the meantime, in the meantime,
that must have given you so much peace of mind to know that you had that kind of support behind you. There was just so much uncertainty during the pandemic. Well, and I think things are opening up a little more now, but in the very beginning, it was like the world just shut down completely.
Well, and a lot of programs like ours around the country had to shut their doors completely. Like they did not have the support that we had. I mean, I think is a testament not only to our program, but just the love that our families have for what we do.
Yeah. And like you said, there's really high overhead. The horses still need to be fed. You still need to get out there and, you know, sustain the program in that way. So
it was so well challenging, to use the cliche term now, but you know, in February last year we had 10 riders participate in the Livestock Show and Rodeos. It's called Top Hands, which is a horse show for programs like ours.
Awesome.
And in that weekend, which was our second year participating, we were named the top club of that year's Top End. So we're on this roller coaster high of, like, we've arrived programmatically. This is one of our goals, and we
kind of reached one of the apex markers.
Yeah. It was such a fantastic validation for the program and certainly our riders. I mean, just everything that went into that. We were so excited. And then we went on spring break. And then, like I said, the world
everything changed.
And this lady here, from March until September, was trying something new to just keep the idea of the concept of the program of Soleana Stables and everyone's, you know, in the front of their mind, because like she said, we've seen other programs like ours that have been, you know, multi-year, you know, multi-generational programs have to shutter their doors because they just couldn't meet the overhead requirements.
Yeah.
And so we were set on maintaining payroll for our employees, the ones that we have, and then how soon can we get back into riding? And for us, that was September. But from March until September,
it was touch and go, probably, because there was just so much uncertainty.
But in that, you know, kind of bring it back to who we are organizationally and who we are as a couple. I mean, it was just trust and faith in the Lord that He would provide, and it certainly was. I mean, He certainly had, and so, you know, there was a moment where you start to kind of question, like, what are we doing here, and this is getting a little bit more difficult than we thought.
You almost can't allow yourself to go down that rabbit hole.
And then
you will just spiral so quickly when you grab onto that. You got to grab onto that light and that hope, and, like, you know, really believe that it's all happening, I think, for the highest good. And your program has even grown, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, for us, our biggest challenge has always been volunteers. You know, do we have enough volunteers for the riders that we have? We currently have over 60 riders on our waiting list. And so a big part of that is just lack of volunteers. And so as soon as we were able to have more volunteer training sessions, in August, I think was our first one, we've consistently had a lot of new volunteers in the program, which is allowing us to add more riders to our lessons. That being said, some of our riders still aren't back. They're just not, you know, at a point
not ready. They're a little more conservative.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine. In
And that,
time,
yeah, absolutely.
they'll come. If people are interested in volunteering for your organization or learning more, where can they find you online? How can they contact you? And I'll
Yeah,
put that information.
they
I'll
can
make that
definitely go
information.
online. It's at soleanastables.org/volunteer. They can obviously email us as well. We typically have a volunteer session every month, and it just varies on what weekend it is. But yeah, I mean, we do all the training. And really, I always like to tell them that the training doesn't stop after the session is done. I mean, we're constantly learning. Like we said, like we're not horse people. So we are still learning everything.
Right.
I always let people know that, because I think a lot of times we do get volunteers that, oh, I've got all this horse experience. I grew up around horses. I've been riding, and that's great. But we also love people that have no experience, and I let them know, look, I am still learning. I let them know I don't ride. I don't want to ride. I love what I do. I think I am good at what I do in terms of being with our riders and our families.
Right.
But I want them to know, that you don't have to be this horse expert to
There's
be
so many different talents that people bring, right? There are people who build community. There are people who connect with the riders, the special needs community, and just have a gift for that. And then there's people who are great with the horses. There's so many facets to this, right? As an organization, as a nonprofit. Do you do fundraising events for your organization? Tell me a little bit about that.
Big yes.
Yes, I mean, that's really how we get most of our funds, I guess, is through our fundraisers. So right now we're down to 2 fundraisers a year. Last year forced us really to do that. And really this year too, because we used to have 4, and 2 of them, we couldn't even have them this year because of their rules. And so we had to actually think of another way to fundraise. So we're having on March 28th a Boots and Brews event. It's at Spindle Tap Brewery, and it's just really going to be a fun event, casual. There's going to be great barbecue, great music, silent auction. It's just going to be a way for really the community to come together for a good cause, and hopefully allow us, to be able to fundraise enough where we can just keep going. And then in September we have our Uncorked event, which is a little fancy, maybe like date night fancy.
Date night fancy, yes.
I like that term, date night fancy.
Yeah. Everything we do is every event we've ever thrown is really kind of like a family style, like family could go to, majority of them.
Yeah.
We try to treat it as if you're a guest in our house, right? So we want you to be fed, we want you to have
feel welcome,
and absolutely feel welcome, because for us, you are more valued than your time, treasures, your talents. But if you have those to provide, we'll certainly tap into those. But we want to connect with you individually more so.
right?
And it always just be it's a dimes and dollars thing. We've got to get this. No. We'd rather have.
Well, I love that about you, because I feel your spirit is really more about supporting these communities and really helping other families who have children or even adult children.
Right. It's never been about us and what we can do. For us, it's always been about who can we serve. I think the moment you start thinking about yourself and what you're accomplishing, you're really losing sight of the act of service, right? And so I think for us, it's what can we do for our riders? What can we do for our families? That's really going to empower them and give them the tools that they need, especially for our riders to succeed outside of the arena. A lot of our work really translates to school setting, to social settings, that I guess I knew that would happen, but it once I started hearing the stories from the families, that's when you really see the power and what
you realize the impacts that you're having, right? Because people come and ride with their kids or as their adult children or whatever, and then they go home, and you don't always get to hear how it's really impacting their lives, their quality of life, their lives at home, their families, because everything spills over, right? There's always this spillover from the experience. How have you guys changed? What have you learned going through this process? And how have you maintained such a strong bond with each other when you have such demanding schedules?
I'll let you answer
Oh, come on, you can't deflect to him. I'm going to hear from both of you.
And I was going to defer to her first, but certainly patience has become a premium lesson. Again, I'll keep saying it because we are a Christian-based organization. It's just trust and faith in the Lord, and He has provided and sustained us through this. And I think so because of that, my focus has always been like, I have the trifecta focus is how I kind of classify it. So for me, it's first my relationship with the Lord and how strong is that? And if I have that, then I can then, have a strong relationship with my wife and then my girls. And a lot of people are like, shouldn't your kids be first? No, because how do you serve your kids if you're not right with your spouse? So we start there.
Yeah, your marriage is a foundation of it all, right?
Everything radiates from that, right? So I can literally serve in my role as in the military because I have those items right. So then now I can devote my attentions and time to my coworkers. And then same is true with the nonprofit. Just it's become more difficult for me with my schedule. I'm not nearly supporting on the nonprofit side as I used to be. I'm actually fairly hands off. I used to be in the arena all day. I was one of the volunteers, and I've not really been able to fill that just because of the season we're in with the organization. But I think the lesson has been patience and trust, and the way we've gotten through that is just it's trust in the Lord.
And love. I think love is a huge one, right?
Starting a nonprofit isn't the easiest thing anyway. When you start a nonprofit, that is, we understand it's a fairly niche.
It was ambitious. That was an ambitious undertaking.
These are challenges, and I think in those instances where it has pushed us, early on in our fundraising days, you could pretty much guarantee the week of the event is when everything would blow up between the two of us.
So just tensions start to build, right? Pressure.
I love you. I know I'm just going to go on the couch and we'll get it over with. And tomorrow we can talk about it. But there was always one night leading into the event where we would just kind of have it with each other. And it was never like us necessarily. It was just all the tensions.
I think the tension and pressure. And I think sometimes you need that little bit of volatility to kind of let off that steam and kind of, it's like a steam pressure building and building. You got to have that blowout just to kind of let the valve open and let some of it off, even though it's not personal. It feels personal when you're in it, so I love that you had that recognition. Oh, it's coming. One of these days it's coming.
and then all of that uncertainty, the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Sasha is it's all of the uncertainty going into an event or what are we doing or the difficult times. It's all washed away on Saturday, which is the day that we primarily are out doing our work because of my schedule. Saturday and Mondays were always my big day of when we offer lessons. And it's all washed away in that moment because you're seeing the connection, the rider to the horse.
It's just all worthwhile.
It's from, from the rider to the volunteer to the family, like everybody that's out there, you just see it and it validates the work that you put in. So
do you ever sit back as an observer and just go, wow, we created this, like this is so powerful?
Yeah, there's been a few moments. The first one that like I really had that was the afternoon after our very first lessons. We were driving home and I just looked at Sasha and I was like, we did it. And we just stopped in that moment. She got weepy because that's kind of how she operates. And we just gave thanks. We prayed real quick and just gave thanks. I think for me, the past, the two other big ones were when we were at Top Hands, when we were able to take our riders in and see them on a bigger stage. It's in the arena is one thing. It's like, in your backyard, you just know what that looks like and you know what that feels like.
That's a whole different level.
Yeah.
Huge. Well, Sasha.
See, told you.
I know. You know what? I brought a tissue. I'm like, I might cry during this. I haven't found to cry during interviews. I might tissue.
I should have grabbed one before we start. I'm definitely a crier, and I think it's just I get so emotional because I'm just so I don't know, I just see God at work, like I think whenever people give us accolades and say, wow, I can't believe you're doing this. This is great. You're amazing. It's like, no, 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 no. Like we're just, this is the Lord. Like I can assure you, this would have never happened without him in our lives.
Well, you are certainly boots on the ground making it happen. So give yourself some credit where credit is due. You have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into building this foundation. And what have you learned about yourself through this journey?
Oh goodness. Probably honestly, I think for me, it's just that as long as the Lord is in our lives, that really I can do anything. I think it's about knowing who you serve first and then taking that and seeing how you can serve others. I think it's, I've been able to just look at our family and say, and not have this pity party, right? Oh gosh, I have a child with special needs and, woe is me, and she's not going to be able to do this or that. I think, for me, it's taking that and putting everything in a positive spin, right?
It's a choice, right? You can either be a victim or you can turn it into something beautiful and take the lessons and the growth and the positivity and bring that out.
Right. And we know plenty of people that unfortunately, they're still stuck in that, I don't want to say pity party, but just they haven't been able to see the joy and the wonderful things that their child brings because they're just stuck, and I get that. That's not to say that I don't.
Maybe you both are also providing kind of a template and example of how you can do something differently. How you can parent a special needs child differently, how you can approach some of the issues with positivity and hope instead of anger or despair.
Yeah.
Because
it is easy. It's easy to, especially, with social media nowadays, people only post the best things, right? The best pictures, the best vacation.
We know there's such a big story behind that, right? We all have real lives behind our social profiles.
Exactly.
Those moments where we're crying in the closet or eating too much chocolate or, breaking down. We're all human after all. Nobody's just that glossy and perfect, right?
Right. But, when you take someone that's, in despair and they're looking at social media, that only throws them deeper, right, into that despair. So. Like, oh, wow, look at these families. They're so happy. And then here I am. Whereas us, not to say that I personally don't fall into that, right? Like sometimes I'll see families and they're out on vacation and doing this and that. I'm like, why am I not on vacation? I want to go on vacation. Right.
Is it hard to leave because you guys have this responsibility and this program doesn't stop if you're not there? There's still things to be coordinated and handled. Are you guys able to connect or get away?
Yeah, we tend to take our vacations when the program has a vacation. So like right now is our spring break.
Okay, perfect.
So tomorrow we're going to go camping as a family.
Oh, that's so great.
For a few days. And then, but typically we don't take, like if there's lessons, we don't go anywhere.
Right.
Few and far between. Yeah. Back to, so I'll add it because she's just too humble for it. But, watching her grow in the director role has been really enjoyable for me. And in that part, you've taken a girl who's traditionally been sort of a city girl, no dirt beneath her nails type person, and put her out into the country, to see her kind of grow in that. And so for me, her in boots and jeans is pretty darn sexy.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
The way she's grown in the director role, that compassionate mama bear, that's just always who she's been. But to see her grow kind of our family, and she's mama bearing, cheerleading, mama bearing for all these other riders and their families and our volunteers, like it's really, it's been enjoyable to watch. 'Cause
Beautiful
it's
to
not
witness.
something- yeah,
Yeah.
again, not something she started out wanting to do, kind of got put into
Right.
it and has, yeah, I mean, is the heart of our program.
It's been
Absolutely.
organic, right? It's been an organic growth. And sometimes when we're put in situations that are outside of our comfort zone, whether it's parenting a special needs child or setting up a nonprofit organization or establishing a program that's way out of your wheelhouse, those challenges seem to pull out the best and the worst in us, right? Because I think we surprise ourselves and we rise to the occasion. We do rise to the occasion and we stretch and we grow a little bit more and we get a little more confident every time we overcome a challenge or navigate something difficult or see your program expand.
Mhm.
It always forces us into these spaces of, wow, I can't believe, look at what we've done, you know? I think it's appropriate and we need to honor who we are and who we've become through the process because life is hard. Life is hard. It's not that European vacation photo that you're seeing on Facebook. It is hard
No. Yeah,
to
it's
navigate.
definitely challenging for sure. But I think again, if you can, I'm very much I'd like to say I'm an internal optimist that I always, you can throw any bad situation at me and I will always find something good. It does not matter what it is. And I think that gets me through it too. I think
Yeah.
both of us, when you're having a bad day or you're, like last year, looking at our bank account just keep going down and down.
Right.
Mhm.
It's hard not to panic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really felt like, what, the Lord is working. We don't see it. I tend to be patient with him, but there are moments where I'm like, look, I know that you're working and I just can't see it, but I need you to show me something,
Give me a sign. Give me a sign.
But I think, yeah, it's just being optimistic and knowing that our big dream will happen one day. Like it may not happen tomorrow or next year, but it will happen. And I'm okay with being patient. I'm okay with the time it's taking.
Well, what are your dreams now? You've kind of got your foundation set up. And by foundation, I mean the foundation of your program, your fundraising template, the foundation, the bones of your organization, and your vision. So, are you constantly thinking about different directions and how to expand or enhance the program? Are you good where you're at? What are your visions for your future?
No, you're never good where you're at, right? There's always something that should be adjusted. If you're comfortable, then something's wrong. So where we are right now physically is where we board our horses. So the property we're at is not ours. It's a partnership with a friend and mentor of ours at Big Wish Farm. So it's just an absolute blessing for us to be able to work with
Yeah.
Ms. Dia and the owner of Big Wish Farm. But we know that there's some expansion that needs to happen. So we're actively searching and always have been actively in mindset of looking for our own land that we can build upon and move the program a little bit more central to us because we live in Pearland, Central Houston, or South Central Houston. Just kind of bring it a little bit more towards us and potentially, then increase our support capability because if a satellite program or some version of what we've been doing at Big Wish Farms remains, then that's awesome. We're just helping more riders.
Right. The more people you can help and reach, right,
Yep.
through a bigger facility, it's going to benefit the community, of course.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the immediate, expansion, patience game because land's not cheap and it continues to go up just because of all the expansion that's occurring. That's where we're starting, and then everywhere from programmatically, there's just so much you can continue to add on and change, and it's never static. It's
Well, and I think too, like the one population that we really want to help also is our military veterans. Andy's been in the military for over 28 years now. And for us, military families are really, special to us as well. And so, he sees firsthand what happens when for us, our airmen are coming back, right, from being overseas, and, the ramifications of what that does to them. And so for us, being able to serve our veterans.
If you could provide a support program, a riding therapy program for them, that would be unbelievable. Yeah. That would be so incredible. I think it's difficult because of the culture, the military culture, for men to be vulnerable or service members to be vulnerable around mental health.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's I think probably an area that requires more support. Regardless, I mean, depending on the type of issues you're having, but there's certainly therapeutic support programs like yours would be amazing. Mental health support. And I think sometimes it's very hard for veterans to find. Mm-hmm. So I would think that would be incredible if you could create something and tap into that population and help people.
And you're right. I think, the word therapy is not something that our military veterans are really ever really excited about. So I think if you frame it not in the therapy sense, but just in the, hey, come out here, take care of our horses, come volunteer. Yeah. I think that's where you're still doing the work without giving it a label.
Yes, therapy. I think the label is the sticking point there.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that has a little bit of a stigma attached to it, or an implication that there's something wrong.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think so much of it's perception. I think so much of mental health issues are about perception, because it's not about something being wrong. It's something that requires healing.
Yeah.
Right.
Internally.
Yeah. So militarily, I know we've gone to great lengths to demystify mental health and mental wellness. And that's kind of what we're seeing now as a result of 20 years of combat and downrange since 9/11.
It's a lot of trauma.
Yeah. I mean, our warriors are certainly not, sucking it up like our Vietnam veterans used to.
Mm-hmm.
Are still struggling with.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's sort of demystifying and calling it something different. Guys get together not because the coffee's good. Usually, it's right. Bad coffee almost always. But it's the conversations. It's the way military folks interact. And I certainly saw it. I knew it was something, because just in the time when I would volunteer, I would get there 30, 40 minutes earlier just so I could go and grab my horse and interact with my horse. And I started to notice, like, I'm a lot calmer now. There is something here. It is
100%.
Yeah, I was getting the horse ready for his lesson, and then realized, oh, I'm actually benefiting from this myself. And Sasha would tell you, just in my home life, just the way that it was kind of leveling me out a little. You've got a 1,000-pound animal that's completely dependent upon you and what you're doing for him. It's slightly akin to, your wingman or your battle buddy that needs you because he's in or she's in.
Yeah, it's definitely a symbiotic relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think nature, animals, it's also therapeutic. So I hope that dream comes to fruition. I know it will, because that's how it works. You just keep taking that next step and that next step. And tell me a little bit about the girls. What's it been like for you to be parents of these beautiful girls? How do you overcome those parenting challenges or those moments? Do you tend to step back? Are you pretty unified in your parenting? And
he's rolling his eyes, and I was.
Those are tough questions. I don't mean to put you on the spot. You can refuse to answer if you want.
Oh no, we will answer.
Yeah, the big movements of how to parent, I think we've been pretty well. Relationally, we should not get along. She's an only child, and I'm the baby of the family, and so we should actually be pretty much at opposites. And we've always just synced. Silly things, picking out, like, furniture decorations were always in the same sort of area. So to kind of extrapolate that thought, in terms of parenting, we've always wanted to be parents. And I know that's kind of where we started this question. We never really got started this session, never really got to address. We so desperately wanted to have a child, and for the first 3 years, it was just a challenge. It wasn't happening. And then, of course, in those moments, you start to see everyone else around you that you think like, well, how are they having a kid?
Exactly.
We can't. And you start to get a little bit bitter. And so we were eventually, we were blessed with our oldest, Soledad, who's now 15, my goodness. And she, first helped calm me down for sure. I jokingly say that God gives pilots girls to help tamp our egos down. Most pilots I know have that daughter. And I have two. There's 3 ladies in my house. So, I really have to kind of check my ego a lot just around here. So, we had Soledad, who is just such a strong, smart, worldly, young lady that you can almost let her go on her own and she's going to figure it out. And so, the grace of that, then when 2 years later, we were blessed without the work and going to have our first child, we were blessed with Solana, was just okay. And the only thing that was, adjustment that was required there is we didn't know that she would be born with Down syndrome until after she was born.
Right.
And then that's where all the learning came with her. Now, the thing I will say is we've always, I hold a high standard. I tell everybody this all the time that will listen. Like I do. It's just, I think it's ingrained in me from childhood, and it's certainly, further supported by my life in the military. So I'd rather see us set a high bar, miss it, but learn from that than just walk over a low bar. So we've always had a slightly adjusted, bar for Solana, but it's not been like, if you make it great. No, we want.
I love that you have those standards, and I love that you are encouraging her to grow.
Yes.
Because she's capable of it.
Yes.
And she will reach and stretch and grow if there's an expectation for her to. If you become too, I think, codependent in the support of a special needs child, you are going to be limiting them a little bit, because it's so easy to do too much, right, and not allow them to be empowered and find out what they're capable of. So I honor you for taking that approach.
But it can be hard though, because I think, as much as we want her to do for herself, I think as a mom, for me, Down syndrome or not, like I grew up with a family that they felt like they needed to do not everything for me, but provide a lot for me in terms of assistance, just really anything. Mm-hmm. And so growing up like that, I want to do that for my girls. But with Solana, I needed to step back, because that now, although it's loving and kind and helpful, it's really a detriment to what she's going to be able to do if I just keep doing it for her.
100%. And having that realization is huge.
Yes. And so I've noticed, and really I credit not only Andy, but our oldest, Soledad, with really pushing me to let Solana do things on her own, because as her sister,
no mercy.
There is no.
You got this, Mom, back off.
Yeah, she will, and she'll tell Solana, you can do it. You can do it. I already showed you how to do it. Go do it. Like I don't think she sees Down syndrome. I think she just sees her sister that doesn't want to do something.
I love that, actually.
Right. Oh, it's great.
I think it's healthy.
Yeah, they are their best cheerleaders. They're siblings. They're 2 years apart. They want to argue and fight over silly things, but then you get those moments where they're just like, you can do this, or that's awesome, get me that, and they are equally cheering each other on, and that's just,
I love that you must love to see that. If you could offer some words of wisdom to parents who have special needs children and other siblings, what do you think has been very helpful in navigating this, navigating your way forward, parenting, children with special needs, and then trying to integrate them with your other children?
I think for me personally is I've never looked at her and said, she has Down syndrome. Like I've never looked at that as who she is. It's a part of who she is, but it's not everything. And so for me, and as a family, we've never held her back in anything. We've never been ones to not go out to eat because people might see her, or no, we're not going to go to the park, or we truly live a life as though we have just two typical kids that we do everything with them.
I love that.
There's never been we can't do this, we can't do that. Has there been challenges? Absolutely. But you know, like if sometimes she'll notice people staring at her and she'll be like, Mommy, why are they staring at me? And I just tell her, because you're beautiful. That's why they're staring at you.
That's
why
the
would
perfect
I
answer.
stare at you all the time? And she's like, oh, okay. You know, and I think it's just making them not feel any different, or her sibling and feel any different.
I love that. Yeah.
You know, that you're going to have a challenge whether you have a child with special needs or not. You know, I have plenty of friends that have typically developing children who are just pulling their hair out right now because they're doing, you know, XYZ.
They're into the teen years and they're getting a little resistant to parenting.
You know, and so for us, I mean, I get having a child with special needs is hard. It's a challenge. But if you can look at it through the lens of it being a blessing and what they teach you and the love and really the people that you meet because they're your child. I mean, half of our friends, I would say, if not more, we met because of her.
Well, you wouldn't have found your life purpose.
Oh, no.
Right? You wouldn't have.
I'd be working in a corporate office somewhere in my little cubicle.
It wouldn't be as fulfilling, that's for sure. Right? So there's so many gifts that come when we're presented with, you know, challenges, adversity. I think we find out that we are so much more than we thought we were. We're so much more capable of facing life and, you know, making lemonade out of lemons sometimes and just digging deep.
But it's a choice.
It's a choice. That's the thing.
You can lay in bed and feel sorry for yourself and say, why me? Or you can say, why not me? You know, why is this my blessing? You know, as opposed to, you know, why is this something that happened to me?
I think 100% of the time also, it's important for people to know that we feel feelings. We go through tough times. We can feel devastated and broken.
Absolutely.
What we do with that, how we respond to it, choosing to rise and serve and march forward and know that we've got this, even though we feel like everything's ending or there's uncertainty, or to be able to just keep navigating forward and allow ourselves to feel it, but not get stuck there, I think is the key, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I remember when she was born and they told us, I mean, I probably cried for 24 hours straight, you know, because I knew nothing about Down syndrome. I figured her life was over. Like, my first question really, because I knew nothing, was, you know, how long will she live? Because I had no idea what that meant, you know. But slowly, you know, within those 24 hours, whether it was the doctor or the nurse or the lactation consultant, someone kept coming in with just positive things to say. And so, I mean, those people are an absolute blessing. I mean, they're just like my little angels, because those first 24 hours were just, they were horrible. You know, when you know not what your child, I mean, not that you know with your typical kiddos, but now you truly have no idea what
you have no frame of reference of what's to come. It's so disorienting, because what do you
it's not what you expected. That's not what I asked for.
Yeah.
You know, and
but then on the flip side, you're gifted something so beautiful. You know, I had an experience in 2017. My son was in a horrific motorcycle accident. Early in the morning, at like 8:30 in the morning, he was T-boned by a SUV on his motorcycle and died momentarily, and he ended up coming back. But he was very broken, like he couldn't walk or eat, or he had multiple surgeries. And then after 5 days and 3 surgeries, he couldn't even get out of bed on his own or go to the bath, anything. They give you a wheelchair and they're like, here's a pamphlet and good luck.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? I don't even know what to do with this. Like, I don't even know how to take care of this person in this circumstance. And you're emotionally wrecked, and you run through all these scenarios of what their future might be. Like, will he never walk again? Well, you just don't know. And you are flooded with so many emotions at once. And you don't know how to hold it even.
Right.
But you have to go forward. You have to take care of them. You have to figure it out. And it was just like, and I'm not comparing my situation in any way, shape, or form to what you went through, but there's a similarity there of that feeling of just being completely lost. Like, I don't even know how to feed him. He can only drink liquids through a straw. His jaw was wired shut. You know, it's like, how do you even go forward?
Right.
But somehow
you do. And I think that's how, you know, I remember she had to stay in the hospital a few extra days, and I was so thankful. Like, they would ask me, well, do you want to stay one more day? Yep, I do. I do.
As long as I can get the support.
As long as I can stay, I might still be there if they would still let me be there. Because I thought, yeah, you guys are the professionals. You're the experts. You know how to take care of her. So when they did finally let us go home, I mean, it was scary because you didn't know. But then you soon realized, okay, she's just like Soledad.
It's gonna be fine.
Eat, sleeps, like it's the same, you know. And we just learned quickly that it would, you know, she was going to be able to do probably most anything her sister does and will do. It's just going to take her longer, you know, which just requires more patience, obviously on our part. But I mean, she's in school with her friends and loves her friends. She yesterday just made the cheerleading team.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So, I mean, all these things that, you know, we were worried about that she wouldn't be able to do, you know, now she's doing.
And look at her now, just always going forward, surprising you.
Well, so this cheerleading thing was a surprise because the week working into it, you know, she spent a week learning the routines for the trial, and she'd come home and she's piecing together the routine. And so before we knew that she was gonna, because we just found out yesterday she made the team, I was really enjoying the fact of seeing her find something that she loved, she enjoyed, you know, because siblings, especially the youngest, you tend to follow in the footsteps of your older sibling in some part.
Right.
And then somewhere in there you have to figure out, well, I can't do the same things.
Yes.
And it's funny because like Soledad, cheerleading, not a thing. She doesn't get it. She doesn't want to. It would never be a consideration. She's a different child. But Solana, she's about it, which has just been so incredibly.
I can't wait for you guys to go to her first cheerleading. It's going to be so cute. It's going to be.
I'll be the only mom crying.
I don't know about that. Well, congratulations. I just love that you guys have just created this beautiful community, this beautiful program. I hope to see you continue to expand and reach for the stars, build that program to support military veterans, be able to expand and own property yourselves. And I have no doubt that you are both going to achieve whatever you set your minds to. So thank you. Thank you so much for the great work you're doing here in the Houston area. Thank you for being such great role models as parents for your girls, and also showing other parents that it's possible to really create opportunities and not limitations. I think that is so, so huge. So any last minute words of wisdom before we sign off today?
I don't know if I have words of wisdom necessarily, but there was one thing I did want to kind of go back to when we were talking about volunteers. It's something I always love to address because, again, you don't have to have horse experience. In some cases, it's easier for us if you don't. But you know, people that show up to volunteer always show up with the right intentions and a heart to serve. The thing that I love, what happens, you see more often than not, is they realize that they're being served as well. So I call it servants being served. So they show up with this sort of, I've got this figured out and I'm here to help. You are, and you are making an impact. Somewhere in there, the wall breaks down a bit, and you see it sort of click, and then they become, the one that's served. Probably in some cases more so than our riders. And I love that moment. So when we talk about the absolute incredible impact that volunteers have for our program, if this teaches anyone anything, it's the need for us to serve our community.
Well, I
There's
love
one
that.
message. Yeah, that's what so there you go. There's my word of wisdom is
Perfect. I'm going to provide all the information for people to reach out to you and hopefully get people to get out there and go through your training and learn a little bit about themselves in the process. I think it's going to be amazing. So hang with me for a second after we sign off. But to my audience, thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. I hope you all have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world. Be kind to yourselves. And I love you all. We'll see you later. Bye.